Started. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time and joining our call this morning. We wanted to use this as a time to get together before the holidays, kind of whet your appetite for a series of meetings that we'll do live. January 24th, 25th, and 26th, we'll do a little bit more of a formal marketing update in the three growing regions, starting in Fallbrook on the 24th. The 25th, we'll do a meeting at the Museum of Ventura. And then on the 26th, I believe would be a Thursday, would be in San Luis Obispo, doing our normal marketing meetings at the start of the season. We are recording this meeting just so that we can refer back to any questions maybe. If you have a question, feel free to use the chat option that's usually on the bottom toolbar of your screen, and we can address any questions that you may have. I'm going to start off with sharing my screen, and Steve and myself are going to split the presentation up. I'm going to start off with the recap of the 22 season, and Steve will continue on with the 23 outlook and talk about some of the numbers, 22 volumes, pricing, and go into some information that we have on that HAB has recently published and the volumes for 23. So thank you again for joining us. And to start off with the CAC published information that was recently came up on marketing update yesterday through the commission. But the California season finished out 22 with 276 million pounds, all varieties and grades, about 5 million pounds of gems, and right around 10 million pounds of lamb has. This time last year, the estimates came in at around 306 million. So the crop was estimated a little bit more bullish than what was actual. Then in April of 22, the mid-season update came in around 284 million. Still a little bit aggressive. And then, like I said, final was the 276. That crop produced an average price of $1.76 a pound, which is a really good return. And as you'll see when we start going into the weekly volumes and the monthly FOBs that Steve is going to share on the next slide, today's market is quite a bit different than what we finished off with at the end of the California season. So that was our recap on the California side for 22. And I can talk about the comparison with 22 to 21, which kind of explains why we saw such a strong market on the pricing side. We had the 21 volume out of Mexico at 2.4 billion. 22 had a 304 million pound deficit, and that was really one of the driving factors on starting our California harvest early. As you know, we really ramped up in about February with lack of Mexico fruit from that embargo that we all remember. The California side was up by about 24 million pounds is all, but a slight increase. In Peru continues to claw at more market share, an 87 million pound increase from 21. And that's, you'll see, comes in at kind of an inopportune time for a lot of our California volume. Colombia is going to continue to increase. I don't think for 23 we'll see too big of a jump. It should be around that 40 million pound, but a 31 million pound increase from 21 was significant. A slight increase from Chile. And that overall change was, again, about 155 million pound deficit for all countries of origin for arrivals into the United States. I'll use that to segue into the weekly supply, where I was gonna let Steve talk about some of these numbers.
Thanks, Keith. And before I get into this next chart, that's a little challenge to consume. I just wanted to personally thank each one of you guys for joining us this morning. It's great to see some familiar faces, and we look forward to being able to get out on the road next month and see many of you again face to face. It's nice that we're learning how to to deal with our COVID situation, and again, we're looking forward to some in-person meetings where I'll get to see some familiar faces and get to meet some of you that I've yet to been able to meet. So we're looking forward to that. So getting back to the presentation here, again, this is a little difficult to consume, but what you're looking at here is weekly volumes on a calendar basis. The tall light green bars that you see are Mexico weekly volume. And then if you look down towards the lower part of the chart, you'll see a brighter green bar, and that's California volume coming into the market. And then as you move to the right to where we get into the June period, you see the dark green bars, and that's Peru coming into the market. So that kind of shows you the overlay of the week-to-week volumes from the different countries of origin. I also wanted to point out that you can see a pretty sharp gap in supply starting in week 6 and moving into week 7. That was the shutdown, the first shutdown that we had that happened on the Friday before the Super Bowl. And then you can see another one there around about week 16, which was kind of our second significant shutdown event that happened, where there was a considerable shortage of supply in the market. So Keith, if you could move to the next slide. This is a chart that kind of shows what the price did as a result of those instances. The blue line is price per case by month for 2021. And as you can see, it kind of moved, in that band between $40 and $50 as the season went on. And then we had October and November at $40, and we saw a little seasonal blip in December up to $50, and then turning the calendar into January, we moved up to 55, and leading up to the Super Bowl, where price was around about that $65 mark. And many of our California growers decided to get into the market at that time, which was helpful because we were dealing with shortages. And then when that second embargo event happened in April, the price spiked up to $80 and stayed at a really nice high level all the way really until the very end of June. And that of course is when the Mexico crop effectively ran out, and they transitioned to Loca, which was a significant in crop size. So we transitioned from a Mexico crop that was short into a Mexico crop that was projected to be much longer, and we'll see that in one of the following charts. But as you can see there, as the prices, or as the months have gone by here in 2022, the price has come down to a $25 level and has been pretty consistent in that range for 4 months now. We've seen a little bit of an uptick in the last week or two, up to maybe $26.5, $27, but that's kind of where we sit today. Next slide, Keith. So this slide here is one that I pulled from one of our Mexico friends. So it's in Spanish. I apologize, but I think it's easy to get a gist here for what I'm showing. This is a chart that shows accumulated harvest as the season was going on. The green shaded area that you can see to the upper right is the Mexico crop for 2020 to 2021. And then the blue shade that's overlaid on top of it is the Mexico crop for 2021 to 2022, the year that we just finished. So you can see there that as we got into, really the first half of the crop, the harvest rates were pretty similar. In fact, if you look at, December over December, they were harvesting essentially the same levels that they were the year prior, even though the crop, turned out to be much shorter. And then as you move into February, you can start to see a significant gap starting to develop, which again was largely unexpected. The crop estimate for Mexico last year was about 2.2 to 2.3 billion, depending on who which data source you went with. But there you can really start to see the gap in the harvest rates when it became obvious to the industry that that Mexico was going to come in much shorter than what they were projecting, and that certainly contributed to the price rocketing up and staying up, all the way through their crop year at the end of June. So we're going to move to the next slide, but you're going to see a similar slide to the one we just left that's showing this next, the crop year that we're in. And it'll start to paint a picture, I think, of kind of what we're looking at for, for Q1 and Q2 of next year. This chart here shows you what the crop sizes were by country of origin in 2022 and what the projections are for 2023 in each of the countries of origin. So you can see there in Mexico, that kind of jumps off the page that, the estimate there is a reversal of the volume that they lost in 2022. So a significant increase in what Mexico's expecting to ship to the U.S. for their crop year, which again goes from July 1st to June 30. So we're effectively halfway through their crop year. So it'll be important to keep that in mind as we look at the next slide. But before we get there, you can see that the latest crop estimate for California is at 257 million. The Peruvian number there, we didn't point it out in the slide prior, but that 277 million pound number for 2022 was up over 50% from 2021. I think they shipped around 190 million in 21. So they went up to 277 in 22, primarily because of two reasons. One is their crop size continues to increase significantly, something on the order of 10% year over year. And then the European market, where most of their fruit goes, was terrible last year. For much of the Peruvian season last year, they were returning, the market price was around $14 to $15. So they were interested in pushing as much to the US as they possibly could. And that's why, in part, we saw a 50% increase in Peru. For 2023, I put in a 280 million pound estimate. Our feeling here at Index is that the US market can absorb about 230 million pounds from Peru. The Peruvians and their efforts through the Peruvian Avocado Commission are interested in pushing upwards of 350 million pounds into our market next year. So there's a pretty significant gap between what they would like to do and what we think is a responsible amount of volume to push into the market. So I kind of just cut it in the middle and put 280 million in there for for the purposes of this discussion. Colombia continues to grow. I would say in general, retailers are supportive of a Colombian program as a hedge to Mexico, but fruit from Colombia continues to be a problem in our market from a quality standpoint. Much of it is not making good arrivals into the US. And then a good bit of fruit that's making good arrivals is deteriorating by the time it makes arrival to the customer store shelf. And so there are significant challenges that remain with Colombia, and some would say those challenges are going to be tough for them to ever overcome because of all the precipitation that they get in Colombia. But nevertheless, it's an up and coming region that's important for us to keep our eye on. And we do have customers, as I said, that are still interested in supporting volume out of Colombia. And then Chile, continues to have a small presence in our market, and our forecast is that it will remain similar. So when you sum all that up, you can see there at the bottom that we did 2.7 billion through our market last year, and the estimates are for about 3 billion this year. That's important to consider from the standpoint that consumption here in the U.S. hasn't been increasing. So week over week we're shipping 40 to 45 million pounds a week into our market, and we're not really seeing demand increase. So with a lot of extra supply, primarily coming out of Mexico. Keith, you can go to the next slide. And I wanted to kind of talk about some of the dynamics that we see happening here in the next, certainly in the next quarter, and probably in the quarter two as Mexico finishes up their crop. So this chart is similar to the one that we looked at before. However, this one is last year in the green, and then so far this year in the blue. And if you look at the table at the bottom, it's got tonnage numbers there, and their tonnage numbers are only up a little less than 5%, which comes out to be about 45 million pounds or so. So if you buy the estimates that are coming out of Mexico that their crop is going to bring 2.4 billion into the U.S., which again is about a 300 million pound increase over what came into the U.S. last year, they're only 40 million pounds into that 300 million pound delta, and we're 2 weeks away from being halfway through their season. So again, if those estimates out of Mexico come true, even if you wanted to cut that estimate or that delta in half, there's still a significantly more amount of fruit that is going to be pushed into our market in the first 6 months of next year coming out of Mexico. So that's kind of the market outlook from a volume standpoint on what we're seeing in the various countries of origin. We'll open it up to questions. Some of you may have some, or maybe even some comments on things that you've heard about how things are developing in other countries. Before we got to those questions, I just wanted to kind of pivot a little bit and give you guys some anecdotal information that's come out of HAB that I thought was interesting. This slide here shows, if you look at the center section there, shows where the market growth has been coming over the last 4 years by quarter. And as you can see there in the center section, most of the growth that we've seen in our U.S. marketplace has been coming in quarter one, which stands to reason, right? Mexico being the biggest country of origin, and them using most of their significant marketing dollars in the first quarter to promote avocados from Mexico in the Super Bowl. That certainly makes a lot of sense. We're also seeing, as you can see there at the bottom, quite a bit of growth in the fourth quarter too, but things are stagnant in the second and third quarter, unfortunately. Next slide, Keith. Here's another slide that is to me is not a lot of great news. Again, this is over 2018 to 2021. Focus your attention kind of on that center bar chart there, household penetration by year. We're not seeing any incremental household penetration for avocados in the US market. So, you know, our community really needs to continue to lean on our marketing agencies to, you know, to help move the needle on household penetration for avocados. The good news is that even though penetration hasn't been increasing, the amount that that existing consumers are buying continues to go up, and of course we're benefiting from population growth too. But those are, to me, these are some numbers that, you know, would be very healthy for our industry if we were getting increasing penetration year over year. So not a lot of great news, unfortunately, for what you know, what the outlook is for, you know, for the foreseeable future. But Keith, on the next slide, I did want to end with you know, some really positive news, I think, for you guys as California growers on average selling price. So again, this is information that comes out of the retail community, and it doesn't translate perfectly to grower returns, but you know, it's I think it's close enough anyway to see what the trends are here. And as you can see over on the right side of the screen on that bar chart there, that over the last 4 years, and mind you, this doesn't include last year's really high prices, the highest prices at retail have been in Q2 and Q3, which I think are you know, a strong benefit to the California grower. So some positive news to end the discussion on. Before we open it up to questions, I would like to encourage everybody to you know, if you haven't already, to take advantage of our agronomy services with Gerardo Aldonate. If you guys are looking for assistance on increasing your yields, you know, improving crop health, maybe water management, and so on and so forth, he's a great resource that we provide for your benefit. You know, continue to lean on your field representatives. You know, they're out and about and love to interact with you guys and help you in any way they can. And then also please take advantage of our food safety manager, Lisa Strickland, who's available to help you guys out with all of your audit requirements. So again, thank you for your attention, and we're ready for questions if any of you have them.
I don't see any questions in our chat box. I guess you did a good job, Steve.
Either that or I put them all to sleep.
A question from Carolyn: will there be assistance with our new nitrogen reporting requirements? Thank you for asking that, Carolyn. And maybe we can use this to get kind of a, I don't know if we could use it to get a vote, but I've been thinking about trying to provide that information through one of our seminars on how many growers have been, you know, been able to attend some of the presentations that have been done by the reporting agencies, or if we think that there is a benefit to Index helping convey some of that information. It's been a couple months, but we did get that request from a few growers. But in the recent months, I think there have been some options for growers to attend that. So I would be happy to try to coordinate one of the agencies, probably in the 3 different, you know, regions, because I think they're done through different reporting agencies or monitoring agencies. Maybe get somebody that can speak on each one of them for the different areas to host a meeting to give you guys that information. So I'll look into it, Carolyn, and we'll see if that would be of benefit to you. Going through the questions. Best guess on 23 prices. There's still quite a lot that can happen between now and when we start the California harvest. But I think we need to, be prepared to seeing prices that are maybe in the FOB category of $35, $36. Steve, do you think that would be somewhat in the ballpark?
Yeah, I think so, Keith. Again, it's very hard to tell. And, last year, a big reason why the prices went up before the industry really knew that it was going to be short is as these, shutdown episodes that happen from time to time out of Mexico. So, we could have one of those at any moment, and we would see a spike in price, and it's hard to tell if those spikes would remain despite the fact that they've got a heavy crop, it appears. But again, I painted a picture of oversupply through this presentation. But if I had given this presentation at this time last year, I certainly never would have forecasted what materialized. So, Mexico was dramatically shorter than what they were projecting, and so I'm hemming and hawing because my experience so far in the avocado deal has teaching me that various things happen that nobody can predict, and that has a dramatic impact on the price. I would say that absent any of those events, and if Mexico's volume is close to what they say it's going to be, I think we're probably looking at FOB prices in the $30 to $35 a box range, a 25-pound box.
And that question came up on, asking kind of the conversion. So that you're looking at, maybe a mid 90-cent to around $1.10 thereabouts sort of field price range. Another question that came up is a question kind of directed towards the CAC marketing campaign, and if for San Diego Southern growers, can CAC start advertising sooner rather than their ads running later in the season? There was a marketing meeting yesterday talking about their overall plan. I can't speak to what months they're starting that. I didn't get that in my notes, but they inherently or typically run the ads when the promotable volume is there to get the best value for the California growers as a whole. That's kind of a commission area regional representative question, I think, for San Diego, and maybe we could reach out to our commissioner on that. Question about organic prices being stable. They tend to be a little bit more protected from the day-to-day or weekly changes in the market, but to say that they're going to be stable, that's kind of a best guess scenario. Like I said, typically they're somewhat protected from the regular market, but the overall conventional market does have a play on organics to some extent in the market. I think we got through most of them. The comment on the FOB pricing being low is it is we do need to prepare to maybe start the season off at levels that are less than desirable for starting a harvest. Given these current conditions, the supply has a lot to do with it. Obviously, out of Mexico, other countries of origin, a big play on the economy. Inflation looks like it's coming into it. Avocados have been, kind of a discretionary item. So, when pennies matter, does a customer pass by the avocado display? There's a lot that's we've not had to deal with as, on a global scale, European market, a war, and a lot of different things going on that I think all are having an effect on our overall avocado market. And a lot of volume that is looking to come to the US that typically would be going to other countries. So
I would say one bit of good news is that, I spoke earlier about how bad the European market was. They were, getting $14, $15 for most of their season. And, we're currently in the $26 to $27 range. Europe started moving up about 8 weeks ago, and today they're in the high $30 range. So, the market there is about $10 above the market here in the US. And if they can maintain those levels, then that will incentivize the Peruvians to send more of their fruit to Europe, which should take some pressure off of the US market with regard to Peru and in that July, August timeframe when when their shipments to the US peak.
John asked if there's any update on the California Costco packaging. I don't have any information on that now, John. I'll look into it and see if there's been any further discussion.
Yeah, when I can comment on that. When we met with them, I guess it's been about 6 weeks ago now with the Costco buyer. He's still very interested in doing it, but it's we can tell that it's not high up on his priority list to execute. So we've given him everything that that he and Costco needs to push it forward, and we're simply just relying on them to pull the trigger and execute on it. And as I said, it doesn't appear to be that high on their priority list, but we continue to push, and they continue to say that they're interested in doing it. And we're hopeful that by the time the season gets going in earnest, that it'll be in production.
I think we covered them, Steve.
Oh, looks, I'm seeing a question here about what caused the short crop in Mexico last year.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, Gary, I don't feel like I have a great answer on that. All the information that we get out of Mexico is hazy at best. And, I think the best distillation of what I heard was that they just overestimated what their crop was, and had a couple of weather events that that caused some fruit drop and so on, and then for it does seem like they're early in their season, which again would be third quarter of 2021. The national market in Mexico was about the same as our market here in the US was, and so they were sending more to their national market than would typically come to the US. So I think those were all contributors.
Thank you. And backing up, there was a question about selling direct to consumers to promote local produce, to support the local producer. And we do offer during California our Avocador program, which allows local restaurants to purchase avocados direct from Index, as well as mail order. You could send a gift to somebody, or you could purchase them direct from the packing house. So we are able to get locally produced avocados direct to market via the Avocador option.
So I see a question here from Ohanis about volumes of organic from other countries of origin. Generally, the percentages mirror the Hass percentages by country of origin. I'd say on, in a general sense, last year, Mexico's crop was short. Conventionally, it was even shorter organically. This year, it seems like their organic crop may be a little bit bigger than it was this time last year. And we're starting to see some pretty good signs in the retail marketplace for organic demand, which is curious when you consider what's going on in the economy. Having said that, there isn't a significant delta between organic and conventional, so that may be what's going on there. Is that there's obviously a delta at which many consumers are willing to make the organic purchase, and if it goes above that, they just won't. And when that delta shrinks, then more people are inclined to buy organic, and that may be what we're seeing now.
And then a question from John on thoughts on the gem market for 23. The volume looks to be an increase from 22, but it was not the increase that I thought we would see. I thought we would kind of start to see a doubling of production. We did, like I said, about 5 million pounds in 22 of gems, and the industry estimate is coming back at only about 6 million pounds, which that's kind of a question for me. At Index, we've talked a lot about the need to adjust our estimating perception of them, number of trees per acre, plus the difficulty on really setting eyes on fruit that's hidden under canopy. So it wouldn't be a shocker to me if that was slightly underestimated, but there still is a lot of new trees that are coming in that may not be in production. So maybe we hit a slight plateau that would have a sharp spike up, maybe for 24 possibly. Pricing is going to be determined when we get closer to harvesting them, John, but it's going to probably follow the Hass market to some extent.
Yeah, and I would just add on gems that Index has really led the charge in terms of promoting that variety in the marketplace, and have developed and cultivated several retailers that are interested in taking the variety. And that's taken a number of years of work to accomplish. And we have a pretty good stable of customers now that are supporting the variety. But one of the things we saw last year, as the gem volume is increasing, is that the fruit is moving to other handlers who are then going out to the accounts that we've developed and said, hey, we can send you the same fruit for cheaper. And that caused, frankly, some of the price erosion in the gem returns last year. It's the handlers competing with each other for accounts that have been developed to carry the variety. So hopefully that doesn't happen as much in the coming year as it did last year, because it definitely had an impact.
And a question about, I think we kind of answered it when we were addressing the gem market from John's question about anticipating the pricing, same point as the Hass market. The gems, like I said, should follow similar to the opening of the Hass market.
I think it's going to depend also on how much volume is coming in when we get started. You know, starting a seasonal variety can be a challenge getting the retailer going on it. And, you know, just, you know, taking you guys behind the scenes a little bit, that, you know, when we have meetings with customers on, you know, starting something new, whether it's, you know, getting into an organic program that might be seasonal or a variety like gem, or even, you know, our export programs that are not year round like Mexico is, we have a start date and we agree on what that start date's going to be. And, you know, we leave the meeting and everybody's, you know, on the same sheet of music. Well, then when that start date starts, you know, gets closer, that oftentimes the program doesn't start on the date that was originally agreed to for a variety of reasons. And that delay can last a couple of weeks in some cases. And so, you know, we're obviously making preparations to get going. And, you know, and when a customer or two, particularly when, you know, when there isn't a lot of volume involved, you know, like there's been with gem, you know, it puts us in a position where, you know, we've got to stimulate some movement because we're having to go to you know, different accounts. And, you know, that we definitely saw that last year where we had to start off with a lower than Hass price just to get some movement going while we're waiting for customers that we already signed up to actually execute and get started.
Another question from Mr. Cornell on USDA is considering opening our markets to other cultivars from importers. And what is Index position on it? I would like to discourage that. I think that for two reasons. You know, I think the Hass importation has been approved because it's somewhat pest resistant, maybe with the durability of the skin of the fruit. I think if you're having other varieties that are not quite as hardy, it would be a real exposure to pests possibly. But, you know, I would really like to see California have a market that allowed growers to be harvesting other varieties for extended periods of time. So I would not be an advocate for having any other varieties coming in. I think it gives us, hopefully in the future, a leg up on being able to market some specific varieties to keep California fruit on the market.
I see a question here, Keith, about is Peru still shipping a majority of 48s and larger? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're not seeing any reduction in the size curve, and there's none projected for the next season either. So fruit continues to be very large and quite a challenge for us to move as handlers on the big sizes. We typically have pretty good success with, of course, 48s and 40s. It's, you know, our challenge with the Peru program is 32s and 36s because there isn't a strong developed market for those sizes and the volumes that are required, you know, throughout the remainder of the year.
In addition to John's question is, maybe we're speaking specifically to gems. I wouldn't change my position. I would not like to see an imported gem from another country.
Oh no, that would be a disaster.
Yeah, that would be bad. And my understanding is for them to amend the regulations for a country to add another variety would be a very extensive a multi-year approval process. Just given the length of time for the approval, I think we have some protection there. But I'd hate to see that the ball get started on that. I've not heard of any significant gem plantings that I know of in Mexico. Maybe I'm wrong, but the gem plantings in other countries, I think, have been in South Africa, and I don't think it's of real large scales, acreage wise. I think we covered all of the questions. Again, we will be expanding this discussion in January 24th, 25th, and 26th, like I mentioned. And you should start to see a notice about those meetings coming out in your email inbox pretty soon.
Yeah, thanks everybody for your questions and your support of Index. We appreciate it. We're grateful for you and thankful for that support, and want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.